This episode has been censored by the PETT, People for the Ethical Treatment of Towers. As such, no towers shall be showing up or being harmed in the video. Thank you all, and enjoy your shoutcast. Hey there guys, Octavian Zero here, and I have episode 31? Yes, 31, in my series 100 casts. This one was sent into me by TheDarkTongo, who's going to be playing Lee Sin on the blue team. He has a YouTube channel where he makes some really awesome montages. I've actually helped him out with work on one of the videos, but I digress. He's a great guy. You should go check out his stuff. And yeah, he's a god of video editing. Seriously, I wish I could do half the things this guy can do. But anyways, getting back into the game. I couldn't quite get the replay to start at 1 or 2 seconds, so we're not seeing them walking off the fountain. We're getting there about when minions spawn, but to be fair, there wasn't an invade early on, so we didn't really miss much. And I'll still have a little bit of time to go into the matchups before the real action starts. Down in bottom lane, it's going to be a Braum and a Lucian versus a Jinx and a Nami. Now, Jinx and Nami certainly do have a good amount of damage. They're both fairly high tier picks for their respective roles. But to be honest, they don't have much synergy between each other. While they're both very good at support and at AD carry, they don't have a inter-champion synergy between those two specific champions, despite being top tier in their roles. Whereas Braum and Lucian have a very specific synergy with concussive blows and light slinger, the passives for both of the champions. Now, Lucian's passive allows him to, after casting ability, fire essentially 2 auto attacks, one of which deals reduced damage, on his next auto attack. Braum's passive, Concussive Blows, on Winter's Bite or an auto attack from himself or an ally after it's begun stacking, will stack up 4 stacks of Concussive Blows, and when the 4th stack is stacked, the champion takes a bunch of magic damage, well, perhaps not a bunch, but takes some magic damage as well as getting stunned, which is a bit more important. Now, these two passives work together incredibly well, as we might see here right here. Braum going in has Unbreakable running to prevent some of the damage, and they got the early level 2 down there on blue side and bot lane, and so they got the huge advantage there, as now TheDarkTongo is invading onto blue line, steals away the blue buff with Smite, and then kills off the Amumu in the jungle. Great start for that Lee Sin jungle, and really great start for blue team all around. They managed to bully away Jinx and Nami, getting the early level 2, as well as Lee Sin getting the easiest invade of his life, sitting in that bush until the Smite steal, and then just killing off the Amumu, who is low on health and is really no match for a Lee Sin jungle in terms of dueling potential. As up in top lane, we see that Nar's doing some nice damage onto Maokai. And as I said at the beginning of this video, all towers have been censored out of this game because the People for the Ethical Treatment of Towers gave me a phone call a few days ago and told me that too many towers were being injured in my videos, and so we're gonna have to make them invisible from now on. I'm sorry, guys. No, really, low replay had one of its really silly bugs, but the game is still watchable. It's just minions stand still and towers are invisible when minions are attacking them. It's crazy. Low replay, op.gg, Baron replay, all of them have been buggy as all hell ever since the Nar release patch, so none of the newer patches have fixed it. I'm sorry, guys, but anyways, I'll get back into the casting proper and go into some of the other matchups besides simply bottom lane. As we saw, the jungle matchup, Lee Sin versus Amumu, is certainly heavily in favor of Lee Sin if he can get some good invades off. Sidra landing good damage onto Orianna in mid lane. As we see that Tongo sitting in the enemy Wraith camp. He did some more counter jungling, and now he might be going for a, yeah, he's going for the gank here. Pops over the wall with Safeguard onto a ward, and then quick finish with the Sonic Wave Resonating Strike for the execute damage. Syndra didn't even get the assist there. Tongo brought down the Orianna that incredibly quickly, as now Braum doing some good zoning for his AD carry. He took a bunch of health there, but to be fair, the Jinx is low on health and has the disadvantage in terms of CS already, so Lucian's going to be getting level 4 sooner than they get level 4, most likely. So the fact that this Braum has been able to zone out this Jinx so much, despite the fact that he's taken more harass than he's given the Nami, means that he's doing his job very well. This is a very well-played support Braum so far in this game, where blue team is already 2 up in terms of kills and 1,000 up in terms of gold. But as I was saying, and as it looks like we're going to see illustrated here, the Lee Sin matchup with the Amumu in the jungle. Just Lee Sin can beat all over this Amumu, especially as he's gotten an early lead as he has. However, Gnar is roaming down out of the top lane, ignites him. Lee Sin flashes away into the bush. He might still be in trouble though. Gnar jumping after him. He turns around, decides to go on the aggressive, does take out Amumu before falling down, but gets shut down by the Gnar. He was 3-0 at about 6 minutes into the game, so that's a bunch of gold going Gnar's way. But to be fair, he had no other way out of that, so turning around and getting the kill, probably the best decision there. As now in middle lane, Orianna and Syndra are trading. Syndra has done a wonderful job of dodging out nearly all of Orianna's damage, just took a few auto attacks there. Just traded back very well onto this Orianna. Good play from the Syndra, who's just hit level 6 before the Orianna has, so we might see some action there. Up in top lane, the Gnar and the Maokai trading it out a little bit. I expect the Gnar to win this lane early on in the laning phase. Maokai becomes an unstoppable menace in the later game, even if he falls behind in lane, just simply because of the amount of healing he can get out in team fights with repeated uses of his passive. He's so incredibly tanky. But I expect the Gnar with the range advantage, usually. I mean, sometimes he doesn't have the range advantage because he turns into a giant hulking monstrosity with huge club-like paws instead of boomerangs, but most of the time he'll have the range advantage in that lane and be able to throw out boomerangs basically on cooldown. Well, on cooldown because he doesn't have mana costs either, which is another advantage he'll get for laning phase. But down in bottom lane, there's a little bit of a duel going on. Nothing too serious comes out of it. Lucian and Braum take a little bit of harass as Nami gets hit by the Winter's Bite, does heal herself up, though, to remove that damage. As now Syndra going in onto the Orianna, pops the ulti as well as Ignite. However, the tower is there despite the fact that it's invisible, so she doesn't want to dive any further, as Amumu is just getting harassed in this jungle. And Gnar doing his best up in top lane. The percentage damage on that magic damage W, who dives under the tower, stuns up the Maokai, throws him against the wall, flashes to the side rather than away, though, and so goes down to the damage from Invisible Tower Man, as now Braum is leaping in towards the Jinx, lands the passive onto both enemy bot laners. However, a very nice bubble, followed up by the snare from Jinx, is holding that Lucian in place for what seems like forever. He finally manages to flash away, is exhausted, has to burn heal, but it's not going to be enough. Jinx picking up that kill. Very well played by the Nami and the Jinx for purple team down in bottom lane. And that, well, doesn't even up the gold yet. There's still about 1,000 gold deficit, but they are pulling themselves back into this game. Very well played by the bottom lane for purple team. Especially considering Dragon is up. Yeah, Mumu's near the pit. They might want to go for this Dragon pickup. There is a pink ward in that bush, so they see that they're walking up towards the river, and it doesn't seem like they're going for the Dragon. No, it's just that Amumu is going to be giving over the blue buff to Orianna. As Lee Sin tried to gank mid, but Orianna thankfully was off taking her blue buff at the time, or she might have been in a little bit of trouble since this Lee Sin is doing a lot of work. Already 3-0, not even 10 minutes into the game. Pushing up the minions with Syndra, wanting to deny this Orianna as much farm as they can while she's off taking the blue buff. Very smart play there. Not too flashy play, but still map control and wave control is as important as making those incredibly flashy plays. As up in top lane, Gnar and Maokai are at it once. Again, Gnar is in Mega Gnar form, so this is a wet noodle fight. They're going at each other. Neither one really able to bring down the other. They're both incredibly tanky. They're still doing it, though. Jumping back in onto one another. Gnar lands the CC, lands the boulder toss. Maokai turns around with a final arcane smash, and they both peel off away from each other, as now Syndra is going down in the mid lane. Amumu finally getting a gank off, coming out of the jungle, doing something for his team there, getting his first kill out of the jungle. As now Braum has landed concussive blows onto Nami, but Nami's able to heal up that damage pretty effectively. Gnar leaping forward, there's a sapling in the bush. Maokai turns around with Twisted Advance, the sapling damage not going to be enough before Gnar takes him down. Gnar getting a kill up in top lane. He's 3-1, Maokai's 1-2. Gnar certainly coming out the better in that laning phase. Ooh, zap lands onto Lucian. Braum turns around with the Glacial Fissure, though. Exhaust onto the Jinx. Snares come up. Lucian is stopped in his tracks by those. Drops the culling to try and bring them down, but it's not going to be enough damage. And both bot lanes choose to peel off after that fight. Well, I don't really know if Braum and Lucian chose to peel off. Some very nice snares from the Jinx were able to force them to peel off, really. As we see that Lee Sin is giving his blue buff over to Syndra, if I saw that correctly. Might have picked it up himself. I only saw it for just a moment before we swap back down to the bottom lane. And, well, I was about to say while we have a quiet moment, and Lucian tried to prove me wrong, but thankfully Nami was able to disengage a little bit for purple team. So, while we have a quiet moment, I would like to go into builds. It looks like Gnar is going for more of a damage build than an instant tank build. Now, I personally really like to build full tank Gnar because he's just so utterly impossible to kill, but that doesn't mean that damage Gnar is something which is not viable. It's certainly strong in its own right because of the amount of damage that he can put out with that percentage damage in his W. He's like a Vayne that deals magic damage when he's in ranged form, at least. But speaking of Gnar, up in the top lane, he's throwing out the boomerang. Maokai running in with the ulti going. Isn't taking very much damage, and he traded very well. Meanwhile, down in bot lane, Braum trying to start a fight here, but perhaps he shouldn't have. The Jinx ulti lands, and down goes Lucian. Now Braum in trouble. Tidal Wave coming out. Double kill for Jinx. As back towards mid lane, TheDarkTongo tosses the kick out onto Amumu, kicks him away. Orianna finishes up. Orianna goes down to the damage from Dragon's Rage, as now Amumu going over the wall with bandage toss. Nice Q, nice flash to avoid the boomerang. He comes back in with the resonating strike, picking up the other kill onto Gnar. Very well played by TheDarkTongo on Lee Sin in the mid lane. As we see that Jinx is going back to base, a lot of gold in her pocket. Wonder what she's going to be picking up. With that pickaxe, I imagine she's going for an Infinity Edge first item. Probably not a Last Whisper, but it's possible. She could go for a Last Whisper first. I don't see it too often. It's a off-meta strange build. Oh, sorry about that right there. Hit the wrong button for just a second. But yeah, as you can see, the invisible tower bug does look a little bit silly when a champion is attacking the tower, since they just kind of walk around and then stand still for a moment and then do it again. Anyways, it does look like Maokai is going to be taking the tower up in top lane, what with Gnar being absent, though I really have no way to tell. Hopefully that won't be too much of an issue for you guys. But yeah, seeing as the minions are not dying to invisible tower shots, I think that tower has gone down, but Maokai might be going down. He burns his flash just to escape from the Gnar. Well, I suppose it was necessary, as down in bottom lane, Braum getting hit by the bubble. Amumu, though, is focused on killing that pink ward. Isn't coming in. No, the Nami is not giving up on this. Glacial Fissure comes out. She drops the exhaust onto Lucian, but Braum's ult gonna be enough to hold them off, as now Lucian tosses forward Ardent Blaze and the culling. Doesn't have quite enough damage with those two to bring down Nami, though. She's gonna be fine. Braum, there's a teleport coming in. Maokai's coming in from the top lane. Jinx turns around with so much burst, though, and Braum goes down almost immediately, as TheDarkTongo and Encyclopedic just turning around, their tails between their legs. That gank went entirely the wrong direction for them. Syndra dealing some nice damage again onto this Orianna, as Lee Sin Dragon's Rage kicks the Amumu over the wall away from his teammates. That Amumu was a little bit out of position and made even more out of position by very nice Dragon's Rage coming up from Lee Sin, and they're going to get a dragon off of that. Amumu is down. There's no smite on purple team. There's no chance of this getting stolen unless something drastically magical happens for purple team, but it looks like nothing like that's going to be occurring. The first dragon of the game going over to blue team, as they're going to be bringing down the invisible turret in middle lane as well. But anyways, I was talking about the Gnar build before so much action across the map interrupted me. Tongo taking a few tower shots, or taking a few invisible tower shots. Jinx landing the zap onto Lucian. Braum getting bubbled. However, the chompers have not landed. The ulti coming out from Nami. Lucian is incredibly low, but Jinx does not have her ult up quite yet. Can't finish him off with that. Braum forced to flash away from the zap. And both bot lane comps are fairly low on health here. But Tongo's coming down out of the jungle. This might spell some bad news for purple team. If they don't notice that the Lee Sin's coming, they don't have a ward to see him. Braum's going in. Tongo is hopping onto the Braum as well. Stand beside me and then safeguard to me. And now, the Jinx stacking up those concussive blows. Passive stacks, gets shut down by TheDarkTongo. Pulling off another gank here. TheDarkTongo is 6-2 on the Lee Sin, doing incredibly well. Gonna be pushing up and taking that turret, while we see Encyclopedic pushing up the top lane into Dangerous RF. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce the Gnar's name, but we do see the tower going down in the bottom lane, or rather 150 gold being given to everyone for some mysterious reason, since of course we would not have any tower violence in our videos. That would offend the people over at the PETT. So no, they just stand near an area where a tower might be and get gold eventually. So there's no actual tower killing involved in this video. No towers were harmed in the making of this shoutcast. Amumu has the Orianna ball on him. If he can land this bandage toss, nah. If he could have landed that, it would have spelled the doom of Syndra for sure, but thankfully Syndra was a little bit too far away for the mummy to reach, as now Orianna taking some more harass, coming back into this lane. Syndra's doing an incredibly good job of harassing the Orianna, but to be fair, Orianna's been keeping up on CS, but speaking of Orianna, she's getting altered by the Syndra. She's trying to escape. Lots of damage coming out from Syndra. She flashes the bandage toss, drops the ignite and auto attack to bring him down. However, Amumu's around, gonna finish off the Syndra as well. 1-for-1 trade, but Syndra did get the advantage over Orianna specifically because she's the one who picked up the kill, whereas Amumu picked up the kill back onto her. Up in top lane now, we see that Gnar and Maokai are beating each other down. Gnar lands the stun onto Maokai against the wall. Maokai getting ignited, but has his ulti running, is incredibly tanky. This tree man is not going down. Gnar now, out of his ulti form, is gonna be going back into tiny Gnar form. Amumu has shown up to get his back. Gnar did have to flash away. Throws in the boomerang, doesn't quite connect. Encyclopedic still has about 100 health left. With the dangerous game passive, after Amumu goes down, he heals himself back up. The Rod of Age is active as well, giving him some health back there. Or passive, rather, as well, giving him some health back there. And of course, Maokai is passive. So, Encyclopedic just showing how much health a Maokai can sustain during a fight. As now, TheDarkTongo has found right down in the jungle, trying to take down this Orianna. She's trying to shield herself, but TheDarkTongo is unstoppable. Has so much damage, so much early pressure on that Lee Sin. Down in bottom lane, Glacial Fissure coming out. Doesn't quite connect with the knockup to anybody. It is slowing them, though. As now Jinx takes a ton of damage from the culling, but thankfully Lucian was snared up by the Chompers, so he cannot continue to chase. And now they're at the second place where a turret would be if turrets existed in this game. Jinx throwing out the zap to try and clear out some of that CS. As Syndra's roam down here too as well. They might be going for a dive of sorts. Lee Sin getting engaged on by this Amumu. However, the turret has just fallen, and Amumu is taken quite low. Meanwhile, we swap down to bottom lane, where Jinx is laying down a lot of damage onto the blue team bot lane comp. Gnar has roamed down out of the top lane, but is finding himself in a bit of a dangerous situation. Maokai coming in with Twisted Advance as Syndra ulti. She goes down, or he, rather, goes down. Down in bot lane, we saw that Lee Sin picking up the Amumu kill, all by himself, or rather we didn't see that since the camera was too busy focusing where the other action was on the map. As now they're pushing in onto this inhibitor place. I can't say inhibitor turret because that would offend some people over at the PETT. Anyways. We swap back down to bot lane where we see that Jinx is clearing out some minions. However, Maokai has roamed up behind her. Lee Sin is there as well. She's gonna get bursted down nearly instantly. TheDarkTongo is godlike. Braum nearly does go down to the tower shots. 1, 2, 3, James picking up that kill. As now Amumu gets a 3-man ulti. TheDarkTongo, though, has a bunch of lifesteal, is able to sustain up, gets away. As Maokai turns around, finishes off that Amumu. Now Syndra is here dealing some good damage onto the Gnar. The Gnar manages to catch his boomerang and run away. Catches another boomerang, but he's going to be going down. Lucian dash over with Relentless Pursuit. Ignite now burning on the Maokai. He doesn't stand a chance, even after flashing. Ignite doesn't care if you flash or not. So he's going to go down to Orianna. That kill going her way. As now the tower doesn't quite fall, as we see by that minion dying mysteriously. And so Lucian's going to stick around to push some more minions up, maybe get this invisible tower down, as I can return to talk about the Gnar, which I was talking about before, but I was interrupted so many times I'm interrupted again. Now, Jinx dealing some good damage onto the Lucian as Lee Sin is sitting over the wall. Jinx tosses up the zap, but it doesn't quite connect while Lee Sin lands the Q onto Orianna, goes in with the second activation, brings Orianna down to half health in one swift combo. That is a ton of damage that Lee Sin is putting out here. He has a Brutalizer and an Elder Lizard already. Braum a little bit out of position here. Does have Unbreakable though to prevent some damage. Tosses out the Winter's Bite as well to dissuade the Jinx and Nami from chasing him. And it looks like blue team's going to be going for their inner bottom lane invisible turret. Ooh, Jinx gets hit by the Q. Does Lee Sin? No, he does not suffer from Lee Syndrome. He does not want to go in onto that. Too many members of the enemy team around, and that turret was still alive, if I recall correctly. So Jinx just going to keep chasing after them. Actually, Glacial Fissure forced out doesn't land onto anyone, but at least it does slow them up somewhat so that they don't continue this chase, and blue team does get away, but they were forced to use Braum's ulti to peel. And Dragon is up, so if purple team can garner enough pressure for themselves towards the bottom lane, they could certainly get that. Meanwhile, top lane, Maokai getting engaged on by two members of the enemy team. He goes down pretty slowly, actually. Mumu ulti forced out, as well as the Shockwave. Two ultis burned, but Encyclopedic does in the end go down, while TheDarkTongo is being chased out, slowed out by that Boomerang coming out from Gnar. The zap does not quite land, and he manages to safeguard away to the Syndra, who is also in the enemy jungle. They have not caught up to this Lee Sin. He is incredibly slippery. He goes back in onto the Wolf, perhaps a bit greedy there, but thankfully Syndra is around to body block the ulti from Jinx and bring her down incredibly quickly. And there are so many balls that Scatter the Weak is guaranteed to stun. Gnar throws out a boulder to slow her down. Ignites as well. Really wants this kill. Chasing after the boulder toss. Again back up. Now Lucian, though. So much burst damage from the Lucian and the Syndra. Gnar goes down despite the fact that he was in Mega Gnar form. That is another kill going over Syndra's way, who is 3-2 now, was 0-2 in the beginning of the laning phase, but has come back, is now 3-2, doing very well for her team. has the Void Staff as well as the Sork Shoes, going with a ton of Magic Pen, and the enemy team has virtually no magic resistance built up at all. There's a little bit on Orianna and a little bit on the Gnar, but other than that, they've got no magic resist to speak of because this Lee Sin is 10-2. He's commanding this game, really making them build some armor against him if they choose to build resistances at all. Because not only that, but I mean, Lucian's doing well enough himself as well, so it's really sort of an intractable problem here for Purple Team, who need to build magic resist to deal with this Syndra and the Maokai bruisery AP top lane, but also need to build armor to deal with the fact that Lee Sin is doing incredibly well. And speaking of Lee Sin, he just picked up a Guardian Angel. I don't know if that's the item choice I would have gone with. It's certainly going to make it so that it's very difficult for them to take him off the board. As Brightdown getting engaged on by Encyclopedic here. He's not a huge damage carry, but he's certainly doing some work. Brings it down to about a third health as towards the bottom lane. We come in on the tail end of a fight as Jinx goes down, and now this tower is certainly, well, this lack of a tower is certainly going to turn into lack of a tower, and still, I don't know what to tell you guys. I'm sorry again about the towers being all glitched out, but the tower did indeed fall down there, as now the Nami gets hit by the Winter's Bite, tosses back a bubble to stun up the Braum, but Culling comes out. Culling not enough. Gnar shows up to dissuade them from chasing any further. He's going to do some good damage and clear out the wave. However, DarkTongo is here, throws out the Q, doesn't quite land onto Gnar. There are 4 members of Blue Team. Syndra's up at top, and Gnar leaps in. That was a little bit too aggressive. Maokai going to instantly take that kill. As now up in top lane, the Amumu bit off a bit more than he could chew. The Ignite, a final Q, but the Ignite, or I'm not quite sure what damage quite finished off the Syndra, but Amumu did manage to finish off the Syndra, getting the shutdown goal for himself in that 1-for-1 trade. As now, really nice Shockwave combined with the Jinx ulti bursts down the Braum, but nobody else goes down. Okay, Encyclopedic does finally fall to the Ignite. That Maokai taking so much punishment before going down. Orianna picking up a double kill for herself. 4-for-2 trade on the map overall for Purple Team. Maybe they can pull back into this game and come back into it. They are a bit behind in terms of global gold. They're behind by that's about a good 7,000 gold if my math is correct, which I hope it is. I mean, I hope I can do basic arithmetic. Anyways, Gnar pushing up the top lane, and while we have a quiet moment, I'll look at the builds. Maybe not though. The little Wraith being a great pal to the Amumu, blocking that Sonic Wave from the Lee Sin over the wall, so Amumu manages to get out of there scot-free. Looks like a fight might be brewing in the middle lane, but there's only 2 members of Blue Team here. Amumu misses the bandage toss, so Lee Sin manages to escape. The Lee Sin throws out another Q, but it lands onto a minion again, not quite landing his Qs this time around. As Gnar finds Syndra in the top lane, and I will go back to talking about item builds. The Syndra looks like she's going into perhaps a Death Cap next, though a Blasting Wand doesn't really tell us that much about her build, so I'll move on to somebody else. Lucian has built a Yuna's Ghostblade, which I can see the merit in. Cool introduction on the new Lucian. Or I say new, it's been around for a little while now, but up in top lane, we see that Gnar and Amumu are going in for the gank here. The Amumu manages to land the bandage toss and then his ulti. However, Lee Sin has shown up. Lee Sin does, in the end, go down to Gnar. Gnar then stunning the Lee Sin up against the wall, but DarkTongo is incredibly fed, and he has that Guardian Angel even if he does go down. So while Gnar is bringing him down low, oh my god, DarkTongo is legendary. That was a huge burst of damage coming out from the Dragon's Rage and the 2 Q activations. Nice culling, nearly all of it landing on the Jinx. He goes forward with a relentless pursuit under the tower, doesn't seem to care. Brings the Jinx down, wonderfully flashed by DarkTongo, completely nullifying the effect of that shockwave. And Encyclopedic gets the shutdown gold onto Orianna, while DarkTongo revives out of his Guardian Angel passive. Very well played by DarkTongo up there in the top lane, as well as Encyclopedic being there in time to help out his friendly Lee Sin. That is the, well, perhaps I should have considered building a Guardian Angel this early on in the game, since it seemed to have paid off for DarkTongo now. He would have gone down there if not for that, so I can't really say much about that item choice, since it does seem to have worked out, but I'll move on to some of the other item choices in this game. Amumu has picked up armor. Not really something I'm too surprised by, seeing as Lee Sin is 11-2, and the Lucian is 5-3 and has nearly 200 CS. He's doing fine himself. Speaking of Lee Sin, he's a little bit cut out of the jungle. He does manage to safeguard away, but Gnar hops over the wall. They really want this kill. If they can bring him down, they might be able to pull out a Baron. Lee Sin tosses back the Dragon's Rage to knock away the Amumu over the wall, as well as interrupt the Gnar, and now there are 5 members of blue team here, and Gnar is going down dangerously quickly. Oof, Syndra picks up the kill there, and now Baron has ping zooming down onto it. Tongo and Gibbler are going back to base, though, so... No, they decide to cancel their basing, and they're going towards this Baron. Mumu is still alive, so there's potential of a smite steal here. Syndra's doing a nice job of zoning, though, so long as she doesn't get caught. Very nice burst damage going out onto that Amumu. So much damage laid out onto him. And he's one of the tankier members of Purple Team, and wonderful flash over the Nami ulti. Now, Braum coming in with the Glacial Fissures, throwing that down, not so fast. The Nami goes down to his damage as Jinx gets a double kill. This might be a turnaround for Purple Team, but Maokai has shown up, Lucian has shown up, the Orianna goes down nearly immediately, and now Jinx is being chased out. The sapling does not quite reach her, so she doesn't get slowed by that. She manages to get back to the safety of her invisible turret. And Maokai's actually taking quite a bit of damage here. Might be chased down. Percentage damage from the Gnar doing a bit, but holy god, the Gnar goes down very quickly. This Lucian doing lots of damage. He dashes into the tower for the double kill. And Encyclopedic is just too damn tanky with that Baron buff running and his passive up. All of these spell casts giving him health back. Amumu's Bandage Toss does not connect. But anyway, Gnar has finished off his Trinity Force, so that was the item he was going for with the Phage. Well, obviously, Phage no longer builds into anything else. Lucian, I don't know quite what you're doing here. That is a 1v2 situation. He ran into that with a speed buff, so bit of a questionable decision by the Lucian AD carry there, giving the shutdown gold over to Nami, so thankfully it didn't land onto anybody with more carry potential than the Nami support, but still don't really want to give that gold up to anybody if you can avoid it. But I don't think it's going to be game-ending for Blue Team here. They do still have Baron buff on a few members, as well as a 11-3 Lee Sin, who's just been doing a lot of work this game. He's picked up a Warmog's armor, and on top of that, he has the Guardian Angel, so not only is he going to be doing a bunch of damage from the armor pen, as well as just flat AD he has in his build, he's going to be incredibly difficult for the enemy team to take down as well. Guardian Angel giving him the resistances he needs, and Warmog's, of course, giving him the health he needs. And health regen. I mean, health regeneration is certainly nice, and I believe he still has a Baron buff running, so that's going to be a ton of health regeneration on that Lee Sin there. But anyways, I digress, and I'll go into some of the other builds. Braum's picked up a Frozen Heart, which I actually find a little bit surprising. I mean, it's quite good against a Jinx and a Gnar, so yeah, I can see why. Especially with this Gnar building damage with the Trinity Force and now a Vampiric Scepter. I'm not quite sure where he's going with that. Could be a Blade of the Rune King. It's a decent item on Gnar. It really stacks up his percentage damage even more. And in melee form, gives him more ability to stick to the enemy with the activated ability. As we see Amumu trying to go for a engagement there. I love how tiny the shield is on Amumu because his champion model is so small. Works the other way too with large champion models, people like Cho'Gath or somebody who's been ulted by Lulu. They can have these giant shields around them when they get black shielded or Orianna shielded or something like that. It's just really cool looking. Same thing is true in the reverse with Amumu, as we see that Blue Team is picking up the dragon. TheDarkTongo making short work of that. Smite securing is easy when there's no one around to contest you. So Amumu's sitting off to the side there, trying to make something happen here, but Lucian's not going to push out far enough as the Syndra tosses her ulti down onto Orianna, doing tons of damage here. However, the stun does not land from Scatter the Weak. Shockwave now, and Amumu coming in from behind. Orianna going to turn around with the help of her jungler and pick up that kill. Well played by Orianna to avoid that Scatter the Weak stun. Probably would have been her death had that connected. I think the damage from that alone would have been enough. And Sonic Wave lands, but I don't think Tongo wants to go in on that one. Lucian getting zapped, forced to walk away from the bottom lane. He's been split pushing down here this whole time. And speaking of split pushing, Gnar is busy doing that up in top. So Blue Team has got to make something happen here, or else they might lose some of their invisible turrets. And God forbid you lose invisible turrets. Glacial Fissure not quite connecting, as since Amumu walked in the other direction. Braum maybe thought he was going to walk right, but he walked left. He did that thing which is so incredibly difficult and requires so many actions per minute. He walked to the left. However, towards mid lane we see Encyclopedic has a Baron buff running still, has been pushing the mid lane this whole time, applying good pressure there while his team splits down in bottom. Or I suppose he's the one splitting and his team is the one pushing. Not quite sure which one you call splitting and which one you call pushing. Couldn't you theoretically call both of them splitting? That's a question for the ages. Anyways, moving on. I'll talk about some of the builds at this point. It looks like Syndra has indeed finished off that Rabadon's Death Cap, which I thought she was going to be going for. Very smart pickup, in my opinion. Syndra scales so well with just base AP. I mean, Magic Pen, of course, works well on her, too. Both of them, really. As Amumu lands the bandage toss in onto the enemy team, however, the Lucian manages to flash away just in time to avoid the shockwave, as well as the Curse of the Sad Mummy, so both of those are basically nullified, really only landing onto Braum, who's tanky enough to survive. As now Encyclopedic has shown up, he's going in with the Twisted Advance, he's trying to turn this around, however, they're all incredibly low. Braum goes down, the Jinx has not been touched this whole time, as the Lucian does in fact finish her off. The amount of damage that Lucian is putting out at this point in the game is just insane. Still, though, Purple Team did numerically come out ahead, since they only traded 1 kill back for the 2 that they got. I thought that Encyclopedic went down, but he's Maokai. He's incredibly tanky. He did not. And so that is a small advantage the Purple Team has garnered here, and TheDarkTongo trying to take this blue buff. Gnar wants to do something about it, but Tongo has Smite, and Gnar does not, so Tongo going to pick up that blue buff, but in the middle lane we see that the Amumu's going in, Syndra's turning this around, brings down Brightdown. That was an incredible amount of burst coming out of the Syndra ulti. Now she's kiting around this Mumu, trying to do something about it, slows him down, stuns him up, turns around with the Ignite and a few auto attacks as well, but Amumu goes in with the Bandage Toss, lands that, and Syndra, you probably should have just walked away while you had him stunned. Syndra goes down, Mumu picking up another kill back, but hey, that was a 1-for-1 in a 2v1 situation, so Syndra gotta at least be sorta happy with that. As we have a quiet moment here. So I'll go into some builds. It looks like the Lee Sin has picked up a Black Cleaver, trying to stack on more damage since he believes in the Warmogs, and the now back off cooldown Guardian Angel, he'll certainly have enough tankiness in these teamfights to be able to last long enough to do what he needs to, especially since it looks like he's building Randuin's as well. But however, Lucian doing a whole bunch of damage with that culling, going in with the Yumu's Ghostblade active as well, and gets the kill even under tower, the solo kill chasing after him. However, Nami's here, throws out the Tidal Wave, throws out the bubble, lands it onto both Braum and Lucian. Lucian going down to the damage from the Amumu. Glacial Fissure now coming out from Braum, trying to does manage to get away. He had to flash to avoid the bandage toss, but that is certainly worth his life. Flash is worth living in most situations. Lee Sin lands the Sonic Wave and then follows up the Resonating Strike onto Gnar. Bandage Toss does not quite connect. However, Gnar is continuing to chase, lands the slow as well off of his Boomerang. And actually, you know what? Gnar's doing quite well this game. He's 4-0-3 coming out of that top lane. He hasn't been incredibly flashy in this game, making really great flashy plays all across the map, but he's been a solid member of his team. If they can maybe rely on his damage output and tankiness and maybe come back into this game, they are behind. Purple Team is by over 10,000 gold at this point. So it's a bit of a long shot, but they could potentially make it back into this game because Gnar and Amumu have both been doing alright. I believe that's actually a 6, though, not a 0, since I know that Amumu has died in this game. He was the first one to go down in the jungle, actually, to that Lee Sin invade. Speaking of Amumu, up in top lane, the Maokai is in trouble. Banshee's Veil does manage to block the Arcane Smash, and so Maokai wasn't in trouble. Maokai has tons of health. Amumu doesn't even want to keep bothering to chase after that. Scatter the Weak steals the big golem. Well played, Syndra. It's the little things that matter as she picks up the big golem from the enemy team, as now Lee Sin does not quite land the Q onto Orianna since she got knocked back by Scatter the Weak from Syndra. A little bit of anti-synergy coming out between the Lee Sin and the Syndra there, but it's not that important. They might not have even wanted to engage that teamfight anyways, since Lucian was pretty far away from the rest of his team, and Maokai has been split pushing top, so they did not have a full 5-man team, whereas Purple Team did, so kind of a good thing that they didn't actually engage in that fight. As Gnar misses his Boomerang, that's gotta suck now, it's on a long cooldown, but it'll be up in time for when he needs it. Lee Sin stealing away the white camp. And, you know, I haven't really talked too much about team counts because I keep getting interrupted by fights happening, but I would like to think that Purple Team actually has a really good team comp. Like, an insanely good one, honestly, looking at it seriously now. They have Orianna and Amumu, which alone is incredibly strong for team fighting, with Curse of the Sad Mummy and Shockwave having incredibly good synergy. But on top of that, they have Nami's Tidal Wave, and they have the burst damage that goes out in a huge AoE from Jinx's ultimate. So that's just gonna be an insane amount of AoE teamfight damage if they can get an AoE teamfight. Problem is, Blue Team has not been giving them those teamfights, at least not very often. I think they gave up one, which is one of the few times the Purple Team has picked up a good advantage, and they're really trying here. Really trying to go for this teamfight. I mean, even Gnar is great in an AoE team fight because of his ulti. However, Maokai teleporting in, flashes forward, engages on to the Orianna, has his ulti running, is taking basically no damage. Shockwave lands onto only 2 members of blue team as Glacial Fissure comes out to do some good CC. Amumu's ulti lands onto a few members as well as DarkTongo goes to the back line. Encyclopedic picking up the kill onto Jinx as Syndra finishes off the Amumu off to the side. Right down, going down. And that is 3 men down so far for purple team. Blue team now chasing after Nami through the jungle. The Q does land despite the flash. And so she's going to be going down. I don't see any way she can escape this. She has concussive blow stacking up. Lucian coming in with lights, with the piercing light. And Light Slinger gonna finish that off. I think he just burned his heel. Oh, they saw the surrender vote. That is GG. Blue team picks up the victory. Thank you guys for watching. You're all wonderful. Many thanks to TheDarkTongo for the use of his replay. If you guys are interested, you should go check out his YouTube channel. Does some really well-edited montages of some really great plays, Lee Sin and otherwise. So, yeah, he's a great guy, great YouTube channel. Be in the description. That's where the link will be. Anyways, thank you all for watching. If you want your replay featured on this channel, check the description. You can figure out how to do that down there. And I'll see you all tomorrow.